Welcome back to the Hebrew Point of View. We are going to dive right into the adversary to accuser. This is the latest book that Stuart has just written, and we will get into it right now. And the first chapter we're going to be talking about is the Persians and Zoroastrianism.
Right. And just to let you know, these books are available on Amazon if you want to get them. It's eventually going to be a 5-book series. 3 of them are available right now. The 4th one is in the process of being published, and the 5th one I am getting ready to write. I also have a book which precedes this whole study called The Star of Babylon. And the Star of Babylon has to do with the Babylonian captivity and Cyrus the Great coming in, defeating Babylon and setting the Jews free. And that's exactly where we're going to pick up.
Yeah, which is a really great book to start off with before you even start with any of these, because it gives you great historical background.
Yeah, and The Star of Babylon, by the way, is a novel. It's a romantic novel based on history. But if you read it, you will get the information, the historical information that backs what I say in the book. But that leads us into Babylonian captivity.
Yeah.
So in 586 BC, the Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar II attacked and defeated Jerusalem and took into captivity all of the Jews or the inhabitants of Jerusalem who were of value to the Babylonian kingdom. So not every Jew was taken from Jerusalem. There was a remnant that remained. The people who were taken were the intellects, the students, if we want to say this, the scientists, the astrologers, those who had the knowledge, those who had some ability to increase or improve the Babylonian Empire. And we know that with Nebuchadnezzar, this is the beginning of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, which lasted through 5 emperors and culminated and ended with the defeat of Babylon by Cyrus the Great. So the Jews are taken into Babylonian captivity. They're there from 586 until Cyrus releases them by the Edict of Freedom in 539 before the current era. So that's the period we're looking at right now. I told you in our last session that this whole historical occurrence is so important to Judaism that it divides Jewish thought, literature, doctrine, theology into 2 distinct periods of time. The pre-exilic, which was everything before they were taken to Babylon captivity and including their time in Babylon, and then obviously after they are released from Babylon, we obviously call it the post-exilic, after the exile. And the post-exilic has a totally different influence upon the development of Jewish theology than does the pre-exilic.
How many years are you talking about now between the two?
We're talking about 47 years in Babylonian captivity.
That's a long time.
Yeah. But what we need to know is when Cyrus said to the Jews, all right, everybody, you can go home, you can go back to Jerusalem, rebuild the temple and worship your God the way you want to. Not all of them left.
Well, it probably integrated into their society.
Well, they were very well off and comfortable in Babylon.
Yep.
And they didn't have to go. They weren't forced out. So many of the Jews stayed in Babylon, and they remained there, and they continued with their life and continued with that form of Judaism that they had, influenced by their 47 years up until that period, and eventually led, these Jews became literate, they became wealthy, they became important, and that led to the writing of what we call today the Babylonian Talmud, which is a collection of Jewish writings and Jewish thinking that came out of the Babylonian period.
That's interesting.
So between the pre-exilic and the post-exilic, 47 years.
So what is important here? Why are we talking about this?
Well, what is important is in the 47 years that they were in Babylon, they were exposed to different religious influences.
Yeah.
First of all, when they were first taken into captivity, the Babylonians worshipped the god Marduk. When the final emperor, Nabonidus, took over, he introduced a new god, the moon god Sin, S-I-N.
And this, just by the way, is mentioned in your book, The Star of Babylon.
All of this is in the Star of Babylon.
Yeah.
But what is important about that is he stopped or prevented or banished the worship of Marduk. So he made for himself a lot of enemies out of the priests that originally served the god Marduk and all the people who believed in it, because that was the patron god of Babylon. What happens is they start to worship the moon god Sin, and the patron god or goddess that ruled over Babylon became Ishtar, also known as Inanna. She was the god of fertility, the god of war, the god of kings and kingship. In fact, the main gate leading into Babylon at that period of time was called the Ishtar Gate. And what's important about this is that that Ishtar began to be worshipped throughout the whole of Mesopotamia, or the ancient Near East. So all of these influences started to rub off on the Jews. Remember, the Jews had been taken out of their city, away from the temple, which essentially meant away from their God and their religion and their ability to have a relationship with God.
Yeah.
Because the relationship that the Jews had with God was through the temple. Through temple worship, sacrifices, and the priesthood.
Yeah.
When that was taken away, they had nothing. Then they were deposited in a land surrounded by pagans and pagan influences. And so they were desperate. Read Lamentations and see what they say, what is recorded about the Jews in Babylon. We all know the song By the Rivers of Babylon. Okay? This is the situation these Jews found themselves in. And then suddenly, during the final years of this exile, the rumors start to circulate in Babylon amongst the banished followers of the god Marduk, and also amongst the Jews. And what were these rumors? Cyrus the Great of Persia is coming. Now, why was that important to the Jews?
It was prophesied before, 200 years before.
Right. Isaiah.
Yeah.
The Isaiah prophecy.
In 45, Isaiah 45, just as a matter of interest.
Where God says, haven't I got it in the book there somewhere?
Yeah.
Just read that. Just read.
It says, Isaiah 45, thus says the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him. And I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the two-leaved gates. And the gate shall not be shut. I am the Lord, and there is none else. There is no God beside me. I girded thee, thou hast not known me, or thou hast not known me.
So the first part's important. Let me just read that again.
The Amplified is even better.
Thus says the Lord, thus says Jehovah, our God, to his anointed. Now, those of you who are have any kind of understanding of the Hebrew language will know that he's talking about Messiah. God's anointed, God's Messiah. So Cyrus, God is saying through the prophet Isaiah, he's saying, I am talking to you, Cyrus, my anointed. And what was he anointed to do?
To set the captives free, which is Israel.
To set
The Jews.
Israel free from Babylonian captivity.
Free to go to worship their own gods.
What's really dramatic about this prophecy is it's written
200 years ago.
200 years before Cyrus is even born.
I know.
And God names him by name. He names Cyrus and said, you, Cyrus, are going to be the Messiah that I send to Babylon to set my people free. And the Jews knew this prophecy. And now suddenly they hear the stirrings of rumors.
That he's coming.
That's coming. That Cyrus is advancing and coming closer and closer to Babylon. And by the way, in my book, I go into the history of this advance, and it is so interesting how he crosses the river Nides when it's in flood, and how he develops a plan to actually attack Babylon and to infiltrate Babylon without a fight, without breaching the gates or breaking the walls.
It's really
so interesting. Just remember, the Star of Babylon. I'm pushing my book, but it is an interesting book. Anyway, so they hear the rumors, Cyrus the Great is coming. What are the Jews thinking? They're going back to this prophecy in Isaiah, and they're saying,
we're going to be released.
Our Messiah is coming.
We're going to be free.
We're going to be free. Cyrus is coming. And so there is an expectation welling up within the Jews at this point in time as Cyrus the Great advances on Babylon. We know the story. He breaks into the city in the most miraculous way. He defeats Belshazzar and he takes over the city. Now Cyrus brought with him a religion that is so important, and you need to know this. The religion is?
Zoroastrianism.
Zoroastrianism. Zoro what, you may ask? If you've never heard of it, you need to know Cyrus the Great brought with him Zoroastrianism. And I have to give you just a brief introduction to Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism was founded by a prophet called Zarathustra, or the Greeks called him Zoroaster. And he founded this religion, which was so close to our belief system, the belief in our God and what the Jews believed then, that it was poised, it was there ready to be accepted by these Jews who were waiting for this Messiah. Anyway, he brings with him Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism is a dualistic religion. What does that mean?
Good God and a bad God.
Two gods, good God, bad God. The good God, Ahura Mazda. The bad God, Angra Mainyu. And these two gods are always at war with each other. When the good God is winning, things are going well. When the bad God is winning, things are going badly. But what's so important about Zoroastrianism is not only is there a good God with a bad God opposing him, but there is an end to this conflict sometime in the future where the good God and the bad God will have a battle. The bad God will be defeated and the good God will take over and restore the balance of perfection and paradise to the world. Now I know that some of you are looking at me and saying, I'm recognizing some of these thoughts and some of these things you're saying very well, because these influences came down to us through Zoroastrianism. I know somehow some of you all of a sudden have said, what are you saying? You may be offended even by the fact that I'm saying these things, but you need to listen, because I'm going to go through the history and the development of these thoughts and of these principles and theologies and interpretations that are so important to us.
So Cyrus ushered in a new political and religious climate that profoundly changed the Jewish people, correct?
Right. Before Cyrus, they were dejected, down, subject to the Babylonian masters, and basically were slaves.
Yeah.
Cyrus comes in and he brings a whole new way of governing.
Yeah. So now some of the Jews decided to go back to Jerusalem, but some of them stayed, right?
Right.
They didn't all go back.
No, some of them stayed. But what was happening in amongst the Jews in Babylon at that time under the scribe Ezra, and you all know Ezra, they were beginning to put their history and their theology and their beliefs and their stories that had been passed down orally for so many hundreds and thousands of years, were starting to put these things down in writing. And we have the development of this new concept, writing down the Word of God. Before this, they didn't write it down.
Yeah.
They communicated it orally. That's how the word came. So they would gather under a tree. A teacher would come and stand under the tree, and he would speak the words of the prophets, or he'd speak the words of Genesis and Exodus and Leviticus. He would teach them the law, and he would tell them the things that God wanted them to hear. But nobody had a Bible. They didn't go and look at their Bible and say, let's check what they're saying.
Okay, well, now that you mention that, so that I can get you to understand that this is not just something Stuart is saying. If you go to 2 Chronicles chapter 36 and you read verse 22, which says, Now in the first year of Cyrus king of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be accomplished, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus king of Persia, so that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and also put it in writing. Thus says Cyrus king of Persia, all the kingdoms of the earth the Lord, the God of heaven, has given me, and has charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Whoever there is among you of all his people, the Lord his God be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem. And if you're reading in Ezra chapter 1, you will go, it goes on from there, and I don't have to read it all, but I find it extremely interesting that the biblical text has everything that you're talking about. It's not just something that's historical, though. If you Google something like this, you will get the historical facts, which is what I did.
To put the book of Ezra into historical context, Ezra lived in Babylon. He was one of the exiles in Babylon. He lived and wrote and ministered and taught in Babylon.
Yeah, and he was significant in bringing the Jews back to their God, wasn't he? I know we don't want to get into that, but
the Jews started losing their grip on their identity and their God and their religion, and so Ezra began to teach, and then he said, we better write this down so we don't lose our national identity and our God and our relationship with our God.
Yeah.
So Ezra later on was sent by Cyrus back to Jerusalem because Nehemiah and all the guys that were back in Jerusalem were making such a mess of what they were supposed to be doing, rebuilding the walls of the city and the temple, that Cyrus says to Ezra, you better go back and go and take charge there, because God has told me it's my job to make sure this temple gets rebuilt.
Yeah. And so now Cyrus is sent to put this whole thing into motion, giving the Jews the opportunity to go back and get the temple rebuilt.
Right. So Cyrus is the Messiah God sends to take the Jews out of exile, Babylonian exile, and into a new period of Jewish history, which we refer to today as the post-exilic period.
Okay, so are we going to go into the Zoroastrianism, what it is now, or are we going to do it in the next session?
We're going to do it in the next session. I think this session we've given you enough to think about. There's a lot of information. All of this history, folks, and all of this biblical knowledge is so important. It's stuff that if you don't know it, you don't know the context of all of these scriptures. And if you don't know the context, you can't be blessed by them. You can't have your life directed by something you don't understand. Yeah. Because it may be saying something totally different from what it means to us in the 21st century. Yeah. So thanks for spending this time with us. We're having a good time. I know, I'm having a good time. I've spent so many years waiting to do this. So hope you're enjoying it. We'll be back in the next session as we continue with our teachings on Zoroastrianism and that effect on the Jews in Babylon.
God bless.